The world continues monitoring Russia's military tactics in Ukraine and the now Russian-controlled nuclear plant in the southeastern part of the country. So what will it take to halt Putin's assault, and could America ultimately be dragged into the war? Let's talk about it with Democratic Congressman John Garamendi of California, who sits on the House Armed Services Committee. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Good to be with you. And yes, Ukraine is a terrible, terrible situation, no doubt about it.
Well, what is your reaction to this shelling of that power plant?
Well, it is one more example of Putin just totally out of control, total disregard for humanity, for human life. And in the case of the power plant, total disregard for the safety of the entire region. It's horrible what he's doing in the communities, shelling apartment buildings, schools, hospitals, just about to destroy communities. With the attack on that power plant, he created the possibility of a very serious nuclear accident that could affect most of that region of Europe. Now that he does control the power plant, he also has one more weapon at his disposal, and that is to shut off power to perhaps as much as 20 to 30% of that entire country. Putin is out of control. He is proving himself to be the world's worst war criminal, and he will ultimately lose. He's already lost the world's most area world, with the exception of China and two other small countries, are on side of Ukraine. And Putin has become an international pariah. His country is going to suffer for decades to come as a result of this. And ultimately, he will not subjugate the Ukrainian people.
All right. Well, Congressman, talking about that, with Putin now controlling this power plant, do you think this will or should change the way the U.S. responds, the way Europe responds? And, so far there's been this desire to stay out of the war. But do you think more continued actions such as this will change that?
I do not believe you will have American boots on the ground or American airplanes creating a no-fly zone over Ukraine. A head-to-head fight with Russia, we would surely win. And we would surely set the Russian army back on its heels and back to its borders. But that would be an extraordinarily dangerous war, not only in the lives lost in the war, but also the very real probability that Russia would see this as the reason to use their nuclear weapons. And once you open that door, you just don't even want to open that door.
All right, that's a door you certainly can't easily close.
Well, to say the least, you can't close. And if there is nuclear exchanges, the effect upon the entire world would be worse than horrible. Now, there are other things that we can and are doing and will do more of, and that is to make sure that the weapons are available to the Ukrainian military. They're doing a very good job of fighting. Just yesterday, the NATO country of Turkey sent more of its very, very successful unmanned aerial vehicles, aircraft, into the Ukraine Army and Air Force. Those were very, very successfully used recently in Azerbaijan, and they have already been successfully used in Ukraine.
Congressman, I want to interject here really quick, because speaking of those weapons, the U.S., as we know, sending those Stinger anti-aircraft missiles to Ukraine. Do you think, how does this change relations between the U.S. and Russia?
Well, it is the standard operating procedure that has been in place for the last 6-8 years in Ukraine. We have been arming Ukraine prior to this incursion. And we've armed Ukraine ever since the Russian takeover of Crimea and the Donbass, eastern Donbass region of Ukraine. Russia is well aware that the United States is continuing to supply the armaments that you've talked about, many other kinds of weapons. Now, that is the reason I've spoke to Turkey is heretofore Turkey was coded up to Russia, not any longer. Other NATO nations and other nations that are not part of NATO are also providing military assistance to the Ukrainians. And the Ukrainians are now training and being prepared to provide an insurgency. Russia will find in the cities that they will not be able to occupy those cities safely. The citizens of those cities are going to fight back in an urban insurgency. And there's certainly going to be a rural insurgency also, particularly as Russia attempts to move westward into the Carpathian Mountains in the western part of Ukraine.
And we're certainly seeing signs of that civilian insurgency, as you say. Congressman John Garamendi of California, thank you so much, sir. Important input this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to click on the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.